Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash, this is HeroQuest, and today I want to show you Castles, Crypts, and Caverns, Books of Battle Mats, a set of 2 battle mat books for RPG, from Loke Battle Mats. I'll put a link in the description below where you can check out all of Loki's extensive line of map-based products. I have actually reviewed the Dungeons Books of Battle Mats in a previous episode, so if you've seen that, you'll kind of get the idea of what these are already. But essentially, this is 2 ring-bound books in a set, and they both open up to reveal 1-inch tile grids with illustrations beneath. So you have all of these different maps, and you can take these 2 books and put them together such that you can create an endless variety of combinations and full scenario maps for your tabletop RPGs or even dungeon crawlers. We end up with 2 books with 40 map pages each for a total of 80 map pages. This is a set of 2 Book of Battle Mats, wet and dry erase compatible. It's 5e compatible with 1-inch grid, easy to store and transport, huge 24 by 24 map areas. That's referring to both of the books together, open, fully open. Perfect for any fantasy RPG, lay flat book format. Complementary modular maps with standard entry and exit points let you line up different combinations to suit your adventure, hundreds of possibilities, innovative map books with a 360-degree spine. You can fold in half to use each page individually or lay the books open for a larger encounter. And an example of 2 books combining to create 1 map. This set contains volumes 1 and 2, comes with a slip cover, and I actually like the slip cover, so I'm going to try to take these out carefully, because I've got my slipcover intact for my other set for dungeons. So, Castles, Crypts, and Caverns. This is Volume 1, a castle illustrated on the front, and then Volume 2 with its sort of swampy dungeon. Now, don't let it fool you. Just because this is a castle doesn't mean it's only castles, and it doesn't mean that there aren't castle bits in the second book as well. Predominantly, though, you'll probably find castles in this first volume. What we're going to do is open up these books, review their contents, talk a little bit about how to use them, and we'll even line them up with the dungeon books to show you what 4 of these books can create. What kind of massive monstrosity can we make with 4 of these books together? Something huge, I can tell you that much. So these open up very cleanly, and they're 360-degree ring bound, so you can easily have 1 map by just folding the page all the way around, and you've got access to both sides. Or you can do both maps together by opening the book and laying it flat. Your first 2 pages in both of these books is going to give you this totally open floor plan area. The Dungeons book comes with just a plain white grid with black grid lines. You can't get more basic than that. This is, I feel, is to be used in the same vein, but it is giving you this rock floor flavor, this motif of a stone floor. So use that however you will. It is the only instance in which your 2 books are going to have the same maps on both pages. There might even be subtle differences with the placement of the different colored tiles and stuff, but for the most part, they're going to be almost the exact same. You'll have the same use case either way. When I'm turning the pages, we'll get a look at the quality of the paper. This was a concern of mine before I bought my first Loki Battle Mat book. It's not a concern anymore. This is very thick. It feels almost more like plastic than it does any sort of paper or cardstock. It's not going to rip, crease, bend, or tear while you're turning your pages. And here we go. We open on this lovely scene. You may approach the throne. The king may give you a very important quest. We have some castle rooms sprinkled throughout, a bit of a war room if you so choose to use it that way, an office or a meeting room where important discussions have to be held, a bit of a foyer, or perhaps a place where the warriors have to show that they don't have weapons. We have a hallway, and you will see that the 2 maps side by side, it seems like they're pretty much intended to be used like this by default if you want, because whenever you open to any 2 pages, the theme of the map is always the same. They always mesh together perfectly well if you want to use them that way. And you do have entry and exit points In a lot of these maps, you'll see them at the top dead center, bottom dead center, right and left, or you'll see them completely open in border, like along this edge. You'll have to infer that there's a wall here, or I'm sure everybody would just agree that there's a wall here, because there's usually like a wall behind where the nobility sits, not just open into a swamp or what have you. Although that's doable, you can do that if you want. And between the maps, usually you've got different entry points. So like between the left and right maps of any two given pages, right here we've got an entry exit point, and right here as well. You could say that these are not here if you wish, but they are implied by the design of the map to be there, so it might be a little awkward if you don't want them to be there. Let's turn the page. This is one of my favorite maps in the entire book. We have multiple levels, we have dungeon dressing, we have trapdoors that you can choose to use as they are if you wish. Perhaps HeroQuest style. If we travel into this trapdoor, we roll a die to make sure that we don't have any hazards, and then we appear out the other side, and then we can move about as normal during the rest of the game. Even though there are multiple levels heading down, it still retains, of course, the 1-inch grid. It does, however, look like the stuff is a bit smaller once you go down. So that's some skill on the part of the artist. Big shout out, major props to the artist for doing that. But this is going to have a lot of use cases. This could be a peaceful map. This could be a map where you are sieging, you are invading this castle, and you've got to get through all of the enemies here. You could be protecting your castle from a horde of zombies, which I would supplement this top edge by putting a field map out there and just a ton of monsters slowly advancing towards the castle. You have a lot of options. You have a ton of options. That's really the point of these books, by the way. There's just a ton of options for your tabletop role-playing game or your dungeon crawler. Beautifully illustrated and illuminated interior rooms, a dining hall. If you need a dining hall scenario, you've got one right here. You also have a ton of rooms. You've got your own privy. We've got the treasure chest room. We've got a quiet talking room. Perhaps you can share a drink here. Just a lot going on any given page. Another set of maps this time. A great opening heading towards this statue. What is it a statue of? That's for you to decide. This looks like something religious. There's a lot of pews here. There's books on the way. There's a bit of an office. There's an opening. We've got pillars. We've got an office in the back, and then we've got a room back here. What could be in the room? Put some stair tiles down. Give your players a whole new place to explore. We've got some barracks. We've got a forge. Beautiful, beautiful. The only place that these two maps are linked is going to be here at the bottom, but then you have your industry standard top dead center, bottom dead center, and left and right dead center. I'll call them openings for your exit or entry. We are now outside. We are at the stables. We're south of this castle. It almost seems a shame that the castle map can't be taken out and put above. I think you could remove these maps. I don't think it's easy. They are not designed to be removed, but there's not as if there's an entire tile between these two. So you could lose this section right here with the rings and be fine. You actually wouldn't lose any functionality of the map. I don't know if you always want a horse-drawn cart to be here, but there's always going to be a horse-drawn cart there. So that might be something that you need to hand wave or explain away or let be there. But then, you know, it's broken. There's no items of value on it, that sort of thing, if your players try to search it. Loki does make a bunch of static clings to be used to build terrain or dungeon dressing. Those are pretty cool. I usually prefer to use 3-dimensional things for my dungeon dressing, but 2D static clings would be really nice for this, especially since they're designed to be used with the Loki stuff. So the art style would be perfectly compatible. The scale and size of things would be compatible. It might be worth looking into. Next, we've got a very strange library. It's 2-story. I say it's strange because of where it leads. It leads into this sort of reading area where I suppose somebody could read to a group of interested attendees. Stairs go back down and leave. I don't know what this room would be for. We've got tower rooms, and there were tower rooms in the dungeon book, so if you've got the dungeon book, now you can add rooms to your tower or have a totally separate tower, because why shouldn't there be more than one tower in the world? This one gives me the sense of the bottom floor. Here is, say, I don't know, a wizard who expects your arrival and challenges you to face the upper floors of the tower. Here is where you have been led, tricked by the wizard, into thinking this was a challenge when they really just needed to magically seal you in the center of this strange enigmatic symbol, and then all of the wizards of the council will sit in these stone chairs and do whatever they do. Turn you into a monster? Into a servant that does their bidding? I don't know. We have a very clean crypt here, a lot of winding passages and rooms, and eventually you get to what I would use as the boss room. This could be a boss that telegraphs all of their moves about 1 or 2 turns in advance, and all of your heroes have just enough time to get to one of the corner rooms, which have stuff set up in each one, if you're me, that indicate what their purpose is. The boss is going to telegraph a huge fire attack. Well, this is the only room that's safe from fire attacks. The other 3 would be affected to varying degrees, but then fire would rain down, and if your heroes are grouped here, they're safe. Now the boss telegraphs a lightning attack. The heroes come out, attack the boss, and run into the room that they have figured out is safe from lightning attacks, and so on. Epic boss battle. This map is necessary, but it is very, very cheap, because your GM is going to sit this down and just laugh. Your heroes are going to have to travel all the way down this winding stairwell until they get to the bottom. And right about here is probably when I would have monsters appear and begin to roll down boulders and such to chase the heroes. I'd probably alternate them, have one boulder go down this path and roll down the outer edge, have another boulder go down the inner path and roll down the inner edge. Doesn't have to follow the laws of physics. My boulders are magical. And then they can kind of have space between them, so your heroes can weave through them like traffic on Thursday morning to try to keep from getting smashed while they get to the bottom of the stairwell. Or you could start them at the bottom and peacefully allow them to climb the stairs until they get to the top, which is where the princess's bedroom is. We know this is the princess's bedroom because she has her own lavatory and privy, and she's got a grand bed, a place to put on her jewelry, a changing screen, 2 more rooms to lock up any intruders who might invade her bedroom. We have a lovely hedge maze. This really gives me Rise of the Dreadmoon vibes, particularly because of the aesthetic of it. And then we've got a knight on a plinth. You could definitely use this with your game. Hedge mazes are fun to sneak through to get past enemy knights. These are joined by a single bridge in the center. What is this bridge going over? I don't know, but I don't care. Another outdoor map, this time featuring a fountain. A broad open crypt, this time with tombs, some of which are open, some of which are empty. I don't know what's about to happen in this set of maps, but it's going to involve a ton of spiders. Just spiders everywhere. Spider warning. If you need a set of maps for your sewers, this set here has you covered. There are planks precariously placed such that your heroes may decide to use the shortcut, but then when they get to the center, that's when you tell them to roll the die, because if they roll wrong, they're going to fall into decades of human byproduct and float down towards the very beginning of the map to start all over. There are a couple of very interesting rooms that might be well worth exploring if the heroes can only bother to make it that far. Next, we have a bioluminescently lit cave system. We start out with some rocks in the center of the map, kind of protruding upwards, separating the scene out a little bit, giving you something to hide behind in case you need it. And then into the cave system we go. The mushrooms will light the way and also secretly slowly poison you. We have a campfire, which is a welcome reprieve for our group of heroes. They can kind of chat, get to know each other a little bit better, get privacy if they need it behind any of these rocks, leave to go into the open map. I don't typically like seeing the completely open maps, but I know that that's going to appeal to war gamers, and that's going to increase the usefulness and modularity of the books and thus make them more successful so that they'll be incentivized to make more, so I have to support it. Also, I did come up with the example earlier of having the open environment next to a castle for a sort of tower defense scenario. So of course this sort of thing will facilitate that. The next one is a lovely cave system with its own spring, its own very clean looking water. Perhaps it's infested with parasites, but your heroes won't know that until they drink it and then roll a couple of dice. These caves actually look just like the ones in the dungeon book. That's not to say that they're the same maps. They're not. They're completely different maps. You're not going to find duplicate maps anywhere. But I'd say that to say that they would match perfectly with the dungeon book's caves. And here is the cave system. It's actually the last 2 pages of volume 1. All right, we're going to go through volume 2, and we're going to be a bit speedy about it. We have our first 2 pages. Again, they look just like the pages from the first book. Another sort of place where you would go approach a royal figure to get your quest, and then the rooms associated with the castle. I like this one a lot. This one has just as much use case as the first castle map. You could very much have your heroes defending the drawbridge from monster hordes, while your archers rain down arrows from above. More interior rooms that are really, really lovely. Lots of utility for these interior rooms if you've got scenarios in your game where you actually give your heroes a break and give them a chance to connect, or perhaps craft. Perhaps your heroes enjoy cooking. You give them a chance to make weapons, forage through different rooms of an abandoned castle, or cook or craft in some way to make items that will help them on their journey onward. This is awesome. We literally have a graveyard. We finally get a graveyard. We've got a creepy tree, another creepy tree, we've got graves, we've got headstones, tombs. This is good. This is good. Training grounds, a bit of a courtyard. We've got targets set up, more open space, and it is worth noting, although it is painfully obvious, that you can very easily just turn these upside down if you want even more variety for your maps. You essentially have all of the orientations that you could turn your book to in order to combine it with the other maps, so you really are not that limited when it comes to how you put these maps together. The Strange Library is back, and this time we have rooms that make it even stranger. What is the purpose of the little rooms? Our tower rooms are here. We've got a giant orrery in one of them, and then just an even huger tree symbol carved into the floor. What is it for? That's for you to decide. I imagine that this is the grand hallway that leads to the other grand hallway that leads to the religious statue at the end of the grand hallway in the first book. A ton of rooms to explore, perhaps steal from. A continuation of the hedge maze, just in case the first 2 pages of hedge maze weren't your thing, weren't your style. I don't know if I pointed out that every page has a number in the bottom corner. It's the page number. This is a great way to refer to each of the pages. You could write down in a notebook or somewhere exactly how you would describe each of the pages. 23 and 24 of the Castles, Crypts, and Caverns books. This is hedge maze. That's what I would put. And you could even shorthand design dungeons on paper by just putting the book title down and then the numbers and then the placement of the map books with those numbers when the pages are open. So 23 and 24, and then I would write 23 and 24 volume 2, and that way you'd have your entire 4 hedge maze maps together. That one's a little obvious, maybe a little on the nose, but you can use that system to very quickly record what combination of maps you like best for future use. And now we have an outdoors courtyard, fountain, lovely hedges, another crypt, open tombs. This time we have a tomb that looks like it was broken out of or into, both equally dangerous implications. Perhaps a vampire is on the loose. We are returning to our cave system. It was connected to ruins, or is connected to ruins. Still, lots of spiders. I really like how this visually seems to slope downwards as you are traveling into the next map. At least that's how it looks to me. We are back to our sewers. You can make your heroes groan and sigh in defeat as they realize they have to trudge through more poop. Our cave system, yet again, bioluminescence. I love it. More caves near the campsite, more caves with fresh, clean, secretly poisonous spring water, and the harrowing, very dangerous, winding cave system. These are the last 2 pages of this book. So now it's time to combine. All right, I opened these books to completely random pages just to show you the utility. We've got pages 19 and 20 of volume 1 and pages 7 and 8 of volume 2. That opens into this immediately usable map. You could very easily set up just dice to roll to generate these maps, because there's basically 20 pairs of pages in each book. You could roll a d20 for book 1 and a d20 for book 2 and just turn that many pages in to create your map on the fly if you wanted. So all I did was just turn the page in the bottom map book, and your entry and exit points are doing all of the legwork for you and linking these 2 maps. We have an interior now and an exterior. What was the inside of an abandoned castle is now the inside of an abandoned mausoleum, because the bottom has changed the context entirely. We have a graveyard out here. I turn the page again and they are immediately compatible. They are perfect in every way together, these 4 maps. And I turn the top page, and now your castle interior, or the basement perhaps, or your church is connected to a cave system. Who knew? You could of course block these walls off with fallen rubble, 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional doors, anything you like to make this make sense or work for your party. If you don't want the cave system to be there at all, you can simply remove the book or turn the pages. It's completely up to you. You don't have to have the books in a square. You can of course have L-shaped or Z-shaped patterns of book to really give this adventure some different dynamics. I opened up a 3rd book. I'm not going to have enough room in the shot to show you all 4 books that I have all lined up together, but if you're crazy, you absolutely can connect 4 or 5 or 6 of the books once you get the 3rd set. If you do, there's a 4th set of wilderness tile maps coming out presumably soon. At that point, we would have 8 books to put together, just making for a massive adventure, hours and hours per scenario, limitless scenarios, and just a way to explain every single linked point. So just random pages opened up there to create these maps. Some of the issues that you may find with these books: the ring binding. After spending a few minutes with these, the ring binding is no longer in my mind. I no longer care that it's there. It no longer bothers me. Up close and personal with it right now, it might bother you. You might not be convinced that you can look past it. But speaking from experience, just for myself, I no longer care about this binding. I open the maps and all of my attention is on the beauty of the maps themselves. I can't be bothered to care about the ring binding anymore. You can also connect the books such that there's not ring binding in the way. You could easily close these books up and just use one side of the pages. And then the rings are on the outside of the map instead of the inside. You could definitely use them that way. Another problem that you might have is that depending on what page you're on, the neighboring book will be either lower or higher, and that might sometimes be noticeable just barely, or it could be very noticeable if you're on, say, the first page of one book and the last page of another. That's not really something that I think is going to be given a lot of attention to in my games with these, should I use these for dungeon crawlers. Guys, that is my overview and review of the Loki's Books of Battle Mats, Castles, Crypts, and Caverns. Please check the channel for reviews of the other books. As of this time, I still need to get the Towns and Cities one, and of course the upcoming Wilderness one, but I will be sure to review those once they are in my hands. As always, I'll see you in the next video. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Now onward, brave heroes.